Hello. Hi everyone. How's it going? मेरी आवाज आ रही है सबको? I hope everybody can still hear me. Let's do a quick check-in in the chat box. Send me your highs and your hellos, and let's get started. Welcome to Kitaabi Cabins. मेरा नाम तान्या है, and I will be starting with a new segment called Tanya Talkies, where we will discuss all the different books that I have grown up with, learned a lot from, cried with, laughed with, made memories with, especially classics, क्योंकि that is one genre that I really, really resonate a lot with. And there are so many different authors, especially who I call my feminist icons, जिनके बारे में I would like to discuss a little more. And turning the leaf over, I think over a period of time, I would want this segment and this stream to generally be a space where everybody just comes and talks about female characters or female authors who have made an impact on your life. जैसे मेरे लिए, if I was to talk about one female in my life in general, books छोड़ के या किताबें छोड़ के या movies छोड़ के, for me, my mom has been a big influence in my life. Anything and everything I've done all throughout the course of my 24, 21 years of experience and existence. I just increased my age suddenly. 21. That's my age. But yes, 21 years of existence on this magical planet Earth, मैंने इतना सीखा है और इतना समझा है एटलीस्ट अपनी मॉम से कि there are people who are going to come and go. There are experiences that are going to come and go. There are memories that you're going to make. But one thing that you should really focus on is definitely, building your own self, building your framework in such a manner that you're more resilient over a period of time. And this is where classics come in, right? A lot of people ask me very often that why do you like classics? I mean, it's tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme. Purani baatein hai, why do we want to relive, classics? And it's written in a different era. It's the Regency period. It's a very very different era. Styles were different. Why do we want to revisit something like that? So this is where I think authors like Jane Austen, one of my most favorite feminist literati members, who has written some of the best classics, I think. And if somebody has read any of Jane Austen's novels, I would love if you can just write it in the chat. Um, you know, let's start off by naming a few books that you have read of hers. कोई भी है chat में who's read, Jane Austen's novels, and you just want to throw out a name, show it with the others. Right, there is one which is very, very popular, very famous. I think सबने उसका नाम सुना है, which is Pride and Prejudice. And that's my number one favorite as well. I love it. They will has written in the chat that there's Pride and Prejudice, there's Persuasion, Sense and Sensibility. सबसे best part ये है कि she was actually like a guide to fashionable living in the Regency period. Like when she was not born with a lot of wealth in her own family. She came from a very, very humble living per se, but the kind of writing that she has, the characters that she draws, she really wants people to understand more about just how we as individuals, live in our own little bubbles, and sometimes we don't understand communication as much. We don't understand feelings of other people. So how do we go about something like this? How do we reduce selfishness in the world? How do we make sure that what we are saying is being connected to what we're saying is making sense? What people are making sense, all these things all together. It's a whole concoction that she puts into all her novels, and I absolutely love talking about her, love reading her books. Persuasion, since Sushmita has written that she's really loved it, she really likes to, watch. There was a recent movie adaptation as well. So that is one thing. I would love to know, Sushmita, is there anything in particular that you liked about that book? ऐसा कोई भी एक instance था, I really like that Dakota Johnson played the main lead in this movie, and it was so nice. I really enjoyed it so much. What was your highlight of the movie and also the reading of the book? One thing I wanted to also mention is that for me, when it comes to comfort reads, I think all of Jane Austen's heroines, or like the female protagonists, they have a sense of being steady, being strong, being independent. Are there any such characters, or like any recent book that you guys have read which has made you think that yes, ये जो फीमेल कैरेक्टर है या इसकी जो फीमेल प्रोटैगनिस्ट है, she really speaks to you, like she's a woman of her own, she's self-made. Do put it in the chat box, and I'd love to know ऐसे if there are any other characters that you have really liked recently. Yep. I love it, right? Sushmita has also written, and this is what she's written in the chat box. She's written that the letter was her absolute favorite part of the book. So it's a book where she's talking all about, longing and a longing sense of love and romance, and that's just her idea of it. But Shivangi ने भी एक और चीज लिखी है chat में. She's written that she really likes Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Again, another wonderful author who's written a good set of books, which I think over the period of time we can have discussions around. एक और चीज जो मुझे अब डिस्कस करनी थी, क्योंकि अब ये मेंशन हो ही गया था, तो what are comfort reads, right? Comfort reads for me essentially after a long day of work when I want to kick back and I just want to have a sip of my coffee, want to sit back, relax, get a couch, get a book, and get a kambal, get a quilt, maybe cover myself, just be cozy and have a book in my hand. For me, that's a comfort read. That is just how I've explained the atmosphere. But the reading aspect of it for me would be essentially something that's light, that makes me feel good, mushy, not too lovey-dovey, not too scary, because I'd want to spend that me time just organizing my thoughts, thinking about the day that's gone by, the week that's gone by. So something that Shivangi has written, which is her favorite current read and also a comfort read for her, is Anna Karenina, which is amazing. Like I really like that a lot of people, not only in the past but even now, talk about classics and try to pick up, those little niches from all, sort of, how do I put it? The things that we've talked about just about now, right? For the longest time, I think we have so many values that were given to us from our parents, from our grandparents, and classic में भी ऐसी एक चीज मेरे को नजर आती है. It's like a rule book, right? Be it any of these books that you pick up, you end up learning so much from the past, and there are mistakes that you can correct, even moving forward in life, just by reading or turning a leaf in the chapters, or any of the books that you pick up when it comes to classics. One more comfort read that has been recommended in the chat box is Wimpy Kid. Wimpy Kid Diaries again. What a wonderful, wonderful series. क्योंकि मैंने जब ये पढ़ी थी, I was I think in my teen years, and it is catered to an audience like that, where you are understanding your growings, aches and pains of life, and you need one character, and you think that okay, मेरी भी life ऐसी ही कुछ कट रही है. So definitely that is super interesting. Um, Moving forward, I really wanted to talk about a few more things. I think for me, familiarity of Austen's wit and wisdom, it's like the epitome of comfort reading. So let me explain this better and let me be um, construct the whole idea of like feminism, which is so looped into all the readings that she has. उनकी सेटिंग बहुत चार्मिंग होती है, राइट, वेरी क्विंट, जैसे आज मैंने फ्रेम रखा है, वेरी मिनिमलिस्ट, राइट, somebody has written this in the chat too and thank you for pointing this out. Very few tickers, very few banners going around. That is something I feel like because I'm trying to ape what Jane Austen has done, तो मैंने बहुत simple रखा है आज. Reading about women who face challenges and overcome them over a period of time with all the strong qualities that they have, like kindness, compassion, determination. It is so satisfying to read about it, right? In times when it's super stressful, not only living but in general, the era itself that she was writing in was super stressful because of financial hardships, because of being married off at a very very early age. She had seen things super early in her life. So I think over the past few years for me, it's become a habit. Ki I pick up a Jane Austen novel, especially because there are a bunch of my friends who love discussing her along with me. And we have a small little reading circle where we think that it's always nice to revisit her books and always notice something new. Like talk about a new character or like a quality that was perhaps forgotten, perhaps overlooked when we spoke the last time. Um, but as a little girl or a young girl, I mean, whatever your reading style is, whatever you or even for that matter, even if you like to diversify a little bit, I definitely think that you can't, sort of beat those countryside blues that you get from some of these books. अब दो तीन नाम लूंगी मैं. A Room with a View is one that I really like, which is by E.M. Foster. I really like To Kill a Mockingbird by HarperCollins, and I think a few other books that have really spoken to me, mainly include the writings by Jane Austen. So I'll take a little bit of a pause here. I want to see what other people are writing about their set of comfort reads. So again, there is been a chat that says that Awakening by Kate Chopin is another such book where the main protagonist is a vulnerable yet a very strong woman. Right? I really think that is a good point that you flagged, Shivangi, because not only in books but I feel like अगर आप मूवीज भी देखते हो और जब whenever I tune into any kind of mass media consumption, words like feminism are thrown, you know, in our faces where people are actually getting a little annoyed. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but बहुत बारी जब मैं सुनती हूँ and लोग बहुत बारी बोलते हैं that yes, feminism, ये जो feminists होते हैं, I personally believe that it's definitely not something that you just talk about hardships of women or a certain sex, but in general, you are trying to champion for equality, right, of both sexes, or in fact, for that matter, all genders here. So that being said, the next thing that I really want to talk about is that be it any and every sort of book that you've read, any movie that you've consumed, any mass media that you've a newspaper magazine that you've picked up, मेरे को अपील फैक्टर के बारे में नेक्स्ट बात करनी है. And let me see if there is anybody else in the chat who has written this. Let's make this the next thing that we talk about. So what is your appeal factor? Do you like picking up a book just because the page is a certain size, a certain color? If you think the book, the cover of it really looks good, what are things that appeal to you? So that is one thing I want to talk about next. Let's see what people have written in the chat. Right. Jyoti has been very, very active, and she's written that Daughters of the Sun and Heroines by Ina Makoti are her comfort reads. I'm guessing those are your comfort reads, and I'm glad. I'm glad that you've written that. Since we've moved ahead to another set of things that we want to talk about, I'm glad that people are just sharing their comfort reads. And make sure that while you are sharing these bunch of reads, जो बाकी लोगों ने भी लिखा है, make a note of those. And maybe even when you wanna pick up a book next time, make sure that you are using one of these recommendations. So thank you, chat, for this. Gitanjali says, I judge a book by its cover. Well, for me, honestly, as cliche as it sounds, and I know that the adage says that do not judge a book by its cover, right? They say that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, ye wo, vagera, vagera. Mere liye bhi, Jyoti, sorry, Gitanjali, high five, because I will always pick a book because the cover looks a certain kind of way. Don't judge me for this. यार अगर जा रहे हो आप, यू आर वॉकिंग थ्रू a very very beautiful aisle in a library or in a bookstore which smells amazing, right? मेरे लिए smell भी बहुत बहुत मैटर करती है. When you smell the paperback or like a new book, the fresh smell, it's amazing. So for me, appeal factor, let me break it down. Appeal factor for me would definitely be the look of the book, in the sense that it looks a certain way. And this is where my love for classics keeps increasing with time. I'll tell you why. Right. When you have something like this, which I'm going to show you, which is my little cute little diary, right? Just the fact that it has certain patterns on it, and मैंने इस पे जो भी बकवास लिखी हो उससे कोई मतलब नहीं है. But the fact that it looks a certain way, that is like the first reason why I would pick up my diary, just to write something in it at the end of the day. So look factor. Second for me, like I said, is smell. Reading a paperback over reading a Kindle any day. Any day, if you want to fight me, this could be the next thing that we talk about, कि paperbacks versus Kindle. बट डेफिनेटली मेरे लिए होगा कि मैं एक नई किताब खरीदूं, सेकंड हैंड भी हो चलो, पर मैं बैठ के आई विल रीड इट एंड टू एंड. पेजेस फ्लिप करना मुझे पसंद है, इंस्टेड ऑफ सिटिंग एंड जस्ट लाइक swiping up and checking my phone or checking my Kindle. So that's my thing. Apart from that, another appeal factor for me would definitely be this five finger trick that I always talk about. And I want to introduce the audience to this. So bear with me, because this is something that I always follow when I pick my first book. All right. So when you go on the first page of your book that you are potentially going to pick up, right? And you are like inundated with options. You have so many options. You've got libraries, you've got books online, you've got so many options, और इतनी recommendations आती रहती हैं. अब इतनी सारी चीजें आपके सामने हैं, आप कैसे चूज करेंगे? For me, I'll tell you personally how I go about this. So the five finger trick is that you open the prologue or the first page of the book, anything essentially, right? You place five fingers, and let me show you how I do it, especially with my diary here. Although मेरी diary में मेरे ही words लिखे हुए हैं, but still. Um, right. So I'm gonna show it out. देखना अगर स्क्रीन पे दिखाई दे रहा है. मैंने यहाँ पे टू डू लिस्ट बनाई हुई है, so don't bother. But this is essentially how I go about placing five fingers, right? And the words that I choose with those five fingers, what I try and do is I try and make a mental story out of it. अब words हो गए baby, beach, sun, moon, and the last word can be flowers. Now, as dreamy as this combination sounds, मुझे ऐसा लगता नहीं है mostly ऐसा होता है. ये तो मैंने बहुत ही hypothetical situation लिया है. But I would urge you at this point to pick up any book near you, right? If there's a book near you on your bookshelf, on your table, just run up to your library, just grab one book, and those five words that you choose, try and string those five words together and make a story out of it, right? If it appeals to you, if it's something that you really like, and you've made a whole story out of it, and your imagination has gone running, and you have, decided कि हाँ ये मुझे अच्छी लगी, pick that book up, right? Point being, there are no winners and losers in this, right? There is no winning book and there is no losing book. Why I say this is because every book tries to ignite a different imagination or tries to ignite, let's just put it easily, tries to ignite some kind of evoke some different meaning or some different emotion in your head. And everything is linked to something else or like a core memory in your brain. So that way, no book is actually being rejected. It's just piling up, right? You've chosen this book this one time. Let's say you've chosen Pride and Prejudice the first time you've seen it in the aisle and you like those five words on the prologue page or the introduction page. बोला मुझे ये पसंद है मैं ये पढ़ूंगी मेरी फ्रेंड्स ने मुझे recommend किया मैं ये उठाती हूँ. सेंस एंड सेंसिबिलिटी तो रह गई पीछे यार उस दिन. फिर क्या करोगे? That being said, you come back for it, right? So that way, you've made an entire mental checklist. You have those five words, and those five words keep adding up, right? You keep choosing books, you keep looking at five words, and this is just how I go about it. So if you think this is one of the tricks that you would want to use moving forward, I would personally recommend something like this. I'm going to take another quick pause because I feel like मैं काफी देर से बात की है. I want to see in the chats now. Do you think that this five finger trick or this five finger tip is something you would want to do, especially for your classic fund? Classics की बात कर रहे हैं हम आज क्योंकि तो I would want to know if this is something that you guys would personally want to do as well. This is where I pause. And now I will read through the chats and see. I like how people have written so far that there is somebody who's written in the chat that I read we should all be feminist, and it's taught me a lot about the fine gender disparities that exist in our society. Thank you. Amazing. I've got a book up there on good feminism and how we in general have a very very radical idea of feminism and how it can be reworked. I mean, when people throw words like feminism or like intersectionality in your face, and there are just ways to go about understanding this and linking it to the way you live your life. That's all it is, right? Honestly, at the end of the day, I mean, I might be one of those girls who says that yes, feminist literature, that is me, that is my brand, that is my vibe. But at the end of the day, it is also because it defines me as a person. Because मुझे ऐसी दो तीन चीजें हैं जो बहुत पसंद आती हैं उस किताब में या उस particular text में that really speak to me. Let me take examples. Let's start with examples and let me see how we go with this. Maybe I would want to first know from the chat box because there are a bunch of things that are coming in. I want to see first that um, you know Jane Eyre is something that I think Navjyoti is talking about. She says that we're talking about Jane Eyre. I think it definitely provides a newer perspective to the character. मुझे लगता है that this is not a book that I've read. Right? Okay, I'm going through the messages, so I'm being a little slow. But yeah, coming back to the test that we talked about, the five finger trick. I mean, a couple of people have different ideas. कुछ लोग कह रहे हैं that yeah, I don't think they've tried this before, but they would definitely find it interesting, do this moving forward. Meg, I think go for it. um, and another thing is, I'm also reading through the chats. Right. Yep, this is the one that I want to show everybody else too. So while moving forward, I mean, I don't. What I also want to talk about is because we've talked about the appeal factor, and I think तीन चीजें discuss हो गई थी. The looks of the book. What we've also discussed is, for me, smell really matters. And the third thing I think we spoke about was this five-finger trick. I've come back to talking about one more thing that I really feel is an appeal factor for me. Size of the book. I mean, as pretentious as it sounds sometimes, for me, picking up a big fat novel and then carrying it home as one of those cool literature kids, it's been my thing. Like seriously, गए वो लाइब्रेरी सब्सक्रिप्शन लिए तो वसूल भी करो by showing people that you can read a big book. So I think the biggest book that I had read was one of Vikram Seth's novels. And moving forward too, I think in life in general, although I'm not going to, it's a forewarning, I've definitely stopped doing this. Like I said, it was my pre-teen era when I used to think that, oh, carrying a big fat book around you and then not finishing even 2 pages of it would be a cool thing. I actually believe in the substance of it. But classics mostly, like with all the classic literature that I've seen, all the books that we discussed even before, I think because we've talked about Charlotte Bronte, we talked about Sylvia Plath, we talked about Jane Austen, all these feminists who were writing classics literature. So many of their books are fat, yeah. They're big, heavy books that people carry, and I like how people are also talking about the same thing, like literally. I'm going to show this on the stream as well. Jane Iyer के बारे में people have said the same things, and Jyoti in fact has mentioned a very interesting thing which I think I want to flag. She's saying that book with sunny, fresh looking, the again the look factor that we talked about. Right. I think we can now go back to what we started with. I think we can talk about our comfort reads once again. I want to move this a little forward in the way where we can sort of get a few more recommendations on the kind of books that we would like to read, not only on a comfort day, but let's say a weekend, right? Like a Sunday when you want to just cool off, kick back, get a lemonade. What would that book be for you? And because sunny, fresh looking has come up as a recommendation, I want to see how people go around, especially when people plan beach days or picnics. Like mere liye, because right now I'm streaming all the way from Sydney, and it's perhaps it's 2:30 in the morning, night. जो भी कह लो, I've been up for a long time, especially for the stream. So since I mentioned beach days and picnic days, मैं ऐसे बहुत सारे beach days पे गई हूँ where I've always seen that people have carried tiny little books along with them in their beach bags. They've got a mat, they've got everything, like all the beach wear prepared, and at the same time got like one book which they read on the beach, and that serves them good, right? Pani mein gaye, went around a little bit, just explored the beach a little bit, showed off your little bikini. That is also such a highlight of your whole trip, and then just cool it off by reading one book. So this is where I'm going to take another quick pause. I want to see what is your Sunday book or your beach day book or like a picnic day book, right? We're progressing a little bit from our comfort reads. I want to now take more suggestions. Keep adding it in the chat. What kind of books would you like to kick back with, especially on a Sunday? Yep. Right. Somebody's written Ruskin Bond, A Room in the Roof. Ocean Young's writing is very poetic. Fantastic. Can we now, since I've yapped so much about Jane Austen, like just for the satisfaction of my own heart. I want to see, because somebody had initially written a couple of recommendations, a couple of things that they a couple of books that they've read of Jane Austen. Are there any other books of hers that you would want to read on a Sunday? I know it narrows the bucket. I know it just narrows our understanding, because maybe we've just read one or two books. But if there's anybody who's, wanted to go overboard and read any others, please feel free to write it in the chat box. Because why I also ask this is that, apart from being a literature kid, or being, for me personally, because I am someone who's done a history major, and reading heavy texts and reading verbose literature has just been a part of how undergraduate years and now potentially my postgraduate years are going to look like, right? So Jane Austen's novels have like never particularly stood out to me amongst those canon of classics. Like there are so many others, especially because I'm so interested in sci-fi at the same time. Like I love rom-coms, but I don't want anything being too mushy. But after reading like many feminist scholars in school, I feel like those ideas and notions that you have about love and marriage, that is one thing that she really talks about, very extensively through her characters, like the characters that she has, especially like in Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. I've developed a sort of an appreciation for some of the romantic tropes, but not all of them, because like we want like not too much of mushy content, is what I like. But at the same time, yeah, a little bit sometimes becomes that cozy read for me. So I feel like one thing I had, when I'd read, I think Northanger Abbey. Yep. There was a quote, and since I've written it down, I'm going to read it out. It was that if adventures will not befall a young lady in her own village, she must seek them abroad. And this is something I want to talk about now, because this has been the story of my life. I have recently moved abroad. At the age of 21, I took a decision of moving to another city, away from mine, away from India. और अब मैं सिडनी में हूँ, like I said before, I'm doing a diploma program in conflict and peace building, and I've loved my time here. Like I live on my own, I pay my own bills, I work part time, and I started making my life step by step, very far away from home, and it's not easy, right? Especially when you go to a new country in a new atmosphere altogether, जहाँ पे अपने लोग नहीं होते हैं, वो देसी feeling या that feeling of being home, um, you crave it after a point of time. And I know it's a very different perspective here, but I want to link this back to how reading classics and moving abroad and finding a life of your own is actually so correlated, right? So let's try and understand this, and let's try and see what I'm trying to do with both these concepts. I like how I'm trying to fit all of this together. I feel like although it's a bit of a juxtaposition, like a merge of like especially in the novel that I talked about, North Angle Abbey में, मुझे ऐसा लगता है that there is a clashing of these themes that we talk about: cottagecore, castles, very old, mysterious, dark vibe. At the same time, I think if you are like some sort of like a lover for rom-coms, that is also like a bet for you. Picking up a novel like that, the abroad aspect that I spoke about was essentially because I wanted to flag that many a times we take or make decisions of leaving places where we are most comfortable in, where we've made a life, where we've like sort of built um, that sense of just familiarity. And then when you leave or move out of that zone, it's a whole task, right? At first, it's a whole challenge. So moving forward, I want this to be something that we talk about, where you all tell me that what has been like that one really, really challenging moment, experience in your lives. How recent was it? It could be something as recent as like a week ago, or like even today for that matter. And how did you overcome that challenge? All right, so we'll sort of move or progress out of books for a bit and talk about this. Tell me a recent challenge. Drop it in the chat. Let me make some more room for myself here. Yep, people are writing it at the same time in the chat box. While you're at it, also, I would also love to know that, I mean, overcoming a challenging as much as that sounds like something you should do, essentially, obviously. But also, one more thing that I want to understand from you all is that challenges, I mean, they say this so often that life gives you lemons and you make lemonades out of it and then you make something poetic. One thing when it really strikes, like when the challenge strikes you, sabse pehle, what is that one thing? What is your first reaction? Like, is it flight or fight? Let's maybe understand that first. For me, definitely fight, because that's how I've just become a little more resilient over the years. But I want to see what others are saying. Right. Right, for sure. Flight. A lot of people are writing flight. यार ऐसे क्यों? आई फील लाइक ऑन द कॉन्ट्री मेरे लिए पता नहीं क्यों इतने सालों के बाद वैसे फ्लाइट ही होता था वैसे पहले. एंड लेट्स नॉट लाई, लेट बी एक्चुअली नॉट लाई एंड बी ऑल लाइक ओ वेरी फाइट. मैं भी बहुत फ्लाइट पर्सन ही हूँ. बट रिसेंटली मेरा थोड़ा और फाइट हो गया. लेट मी टेल यू व्हाई. अ फ्यू मोर पीपल आर राइटिंग बाय द वे कि उनके लिए भी फ्लाइट है. वरदान ने 2-3 बार ही लिखा है. और ये बहुत अच्छा पॉइंट है. Somebody has written that if there is no challenge in life, you know, boring हो जाता है. Life actually gets boring. So, how do you build or how do you generate excitement or challenges in life? मैं बताती हूँ दो तीन तरीके हैं एंड एटलीस्ट व्हाट आई डू इन माय लाइफ एंड लेट्स लिंक इट बैक टू हाउ रीडिंग बुक्स एंड रीडिंग क्लासिक्स हियर is going to generate that kind of enthuse that sense of excitement, sense of challenge, sense of newness. Um, Firstly, obviously, there is, especially when you're reading fiction. I mean, the boat floats a little different with non-fiction, but with fiction books, I think that it creates a certain aura, it creates a certain world which you land into, like literally like Alice in the Wonderland. You've gone down that rabbit hole and you've discovered something of your own. Fiction novels, mein, especially mystery novels, mein, it keeps you on the tenterhooks. You're just wondering and hoping and praying कि अच्छा okay this is what's gonna happen and मेरे favorite hero के साथ ये होगा नहीं होगा, right? That's just how it works, especially for mystery novels. Another thing that I feel that generates that sense of challenge in your life is that when you have a set of tasks to complete, and with books, this is where we come back to the five finger technique that we talked about. You have a budget and you want to finish it in let's say a week's time. अपने आप को हफ्ता दे दिया, महीना दे दिया, and you tell yourself that अच्छा ठीक है ये तीन किताबें हैं मेरे पास and I want to finish three of these books. Like for instance, मैंने तीन किताबें वहाँ पे line up की हुई हैं. I don't know कितना दिख रहा है in the background or at least the title of it. And one is definitely Sally Rooney. I've kept one more little self-help novel because I thought that it's mahine and this is the fresh start of the year and I'm going to discuss self-help books not only with the audience here on KC but also for my own self. And I made a whole list of books. So this is where my diary comes out and I talk about this because there is an endless ocean of books that come your way on a very daily basis, and people keep recommending books. You keep writing them down. Like for me, I've made a whole list of like cozy reads. I have made a whole list of books where I have not only included fiction but non-fiction novels too. But the challenge aspect that we spoke about, basically, what I'm just trying to get at the end of the day is that creating that sense of challenge can only come when you start taking things off your list. And as as difficult as it sounds sometimes, challenges can seem easier when you start making checklists, making to-do lists, and that's my trick number. Where were we with the appeal factor? I think we've discussed four, so that'll be my trick number five for you. Another appeal factor is that pick up a book and add it to your list, and then not only are you getting the thrill of purchasing a new book, not only are you creating a new sense of challenge for yourself, that saying that okay, this is another book that I have to finish, but at the same time your appeal factor is your library is aesthetic, like you've added another book to the shelf. What more would you want, right? So I've got a quote here and I'm going to talk about that. I've written that don't be afraid to start again. This time, you are not starting from scratch, you are starting from experience. What a wonderful quote. And this is where I want to understand from the chat too that are there any quotes that you have recently read, any motivational quotes that you would like to share and talk about? I will now check the chat box. Yes, going back to what chat में किसी ने लिखा था कि न्यू ईयर रेजोल्यूशन होना चाहिए टू फाइट. एक क्विक क्वेश्चन आया है. Is Great Gatsby a good book to give to a beginner? 100%. I think there are a few more quotes that are coming in. Sorry, I'm going to go back to this. But Scott Fitzgerald, he has written The Great Gatsby. And personally for me, because the movie adaptation too, I'll come back to this because that's going to be my sixth appeal factor. But yeah, the movie was pretty shit. Like, मुझे नहीं अच्छी लगी. But the book was great. Like I actually liked it. So definitely start with it. Um, I think I only watched the movie because people told me कि हाँ उसमें Amitabh Bachchan है and oh desi roots and he's going to be the representative of Indian cinema there. So उसका कोई role ही नहीं था यार, उसका कोई role नहीं था. But yeah, before we move on, the sixth factor that I was going to just talk about is that if sometimes movie adaptations of books turn out to be better than the books, I don't pick it up. Like, I know it's controversial, and I know that's just not how a lot of people will go with this idea. But as flashy as the movie is, क्योंकि it's commercial cinema and it's going to pick up like TRP. It's built a certain way. You pick your actors a certain way. इम्तियाज अली की कोई मूवी हो है ना, and you know that there's Ranveer, there's Deepika, and you know it's a short gonna be a hit movie, and then you go and you watch it. For me, on the contrary, like I'm not generalizing, I'm not saying it's the norm. I'm saying कि ऐसे कुछ exceptions definitely होते हैं जो I end up watching like movies that are based on books and I end up watching it. Like क्योंकि हमने जेन ऑस्टन की इतनी बात की and that is literally the one thing that I love to talk about. Persuasion जब मैंने देखी, I really didn't enjoy it as much, right? Because that image at least that I created in my head was very different, like a very different understanding of it drawn from the movie. I mean, as much as Dakota acted as like one of the best, most plush characters of the Regency period, I still really like the book better. I'm going to go back to reading the quotes that are coming up on the screen because I want to take some time, spend some time here to discuss this, and then add it to this little kitty that we've talked about. So we've got six appeal factors. My seventh here, and why essentially I asked everybody for quotes that they've liked, is because if there is an like a quote from that book. Not essentially anything that goes into like quote unquote like the apostrophes is quote worthy, right? Like, hear me out when I say this. Not everything that goes within the double quotation marks is quote worthy. What does that mean? What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that there are many words or many sentences in a book that don't receive as much as attention. I mean, some things that just become like यार जो dialogues होते हैं या कुछ एक तो कुछ catch phrases होते हैं जो हर book में या हर जगह are talked about very widely and everybody knows about it. But then there are those 100 other words or sentences that people miss, which are also sort of as important, which actually build the whole narrative, but are often ignored. So that is also one thing for me that apart from the quotes of the book or something that you say is quote worthy or something that you see on the title, anything else that you pick up, start quoting that very often. Hear me out and do this. In fact, make this a little activity, which I think we can do this, especially if you like reading books and then posting about them on media, on WhatsApp, on Instagram, if you like putting up stories. This is something you can do. Like for instance, like somebody's written this on the chat too. You feel unsettled because you know you are meant for more. What a wonderful quote. And it makes so much sense, right? It's a quote that is supposed to give you that, infuse you with that sense of like confidence. बट अगर कुछ ऐसा रैंडम कुछ वर्ड लिखा हो कहीं पे या कुछ रैंडम सेंटेंस लिखा हो, even if you quote that on a daily basis, I feel like mundane things start seeming larger than life. So what I'm trying to say is that there are many times in life or many instances in life where you get very bored. And this is where I'm trying to link it to the very top where we started off in the very beginning. That midway through a book, midway through a movie, you start getting bored. And boredom is just the way of life. There are many times that you're going to get bored in conversations, in relationships, in situationships. You will get bored of a certain story, of a certain person you're with. So how do you create those challenges and infuse more excitement? Well, voila, this is where the books that we've talked about so far and making non interesting quotes your quotes of the day should be the new activity. So, moving forward, I'm going to read a few more quotes and see what people are writing. I am so glad Raghav has written something. Believing in yourself is actually overrated. Generate evidence. Exactly what I'm talking about, right? You yourself fail multiple times, people fail you so many times. There is no point of having so many expectations of anyone in the world. I feel like expectations is a myth. I don't think you should ever have expectations. Instead of that, working on yourself, or like generating that evidence that Raghav is talking about, that is actually more important. See, like I really like that Raghav's also not put his quote in a double quotation mark. That's the point that I was trying to make. So I'm glad that people are following the audience. There are a few more quotes which I want to read one by one. The soul is nothing more than the grey matter of the brain in action. The unbearable lightness of being by Milan Kundera. Interesting. I have not heard this before. So thank you, Shivangi, for sharing this. Vaibhav ने लिखा है, whatever you are not changing, you are choosing. Yes, again another quote, a non-interest. I'm not saying it's not interesting. I'm saying a quote is interesting. Never. This is karaoke. It's not in a double quotation mark, which is interesting. I have confused you guys. Tell me if you follow. Tell me if you followed this idea of having a non-exciting quote or a non-interesting quote being the quote of the day, right? Like just pick up something random, like, "Hey, I went to the market today," and that's your quote of the day. Put it on your status. I say, pick up anything from this chat box right now. I dare you, in fact. I don't even say I dare you. Pick up anything from this chat box at this point. जितने भी आपको कोड्स दिख रहे हैं स्क्रीन पे, I would want you to go and put that out on your little notes that you see on Instagram. I really like that. I really like that new feature. I feel like social media is going to take over the world, and I love it. And please go and put it on your notes. And any of my friends who have joined, or any of the people who I know personally, I would love to see this. So I'm going to come and check all your notes or any of your WhatsApp stories. So it's a humble, humble request. It's not a dare any longer. It's just a request because for me it will be super, super interesting. Moving on, I think a lot of people have written more quotes. So you guys have so much variety, and variety is the spice of life. So dekhte chalo. People have written, when you don't look through logic and perspective, sometimes you see problems in a different light. Very, very essential. It's the essentialist, most um, often sort of quoted thing. Navneet has written, "It is not true that people stop pursuing dreams because they grow old. They grow old because they stop pursuing dreams." Oh, interesting. Is there a limit to having a growth mindset? Is another quote. And that's it. Voila. We have a bunch of quotes. Like I said, I would love to see some notes, some WhatsApp statuses, some random stories going out after the stream, going like, "Oh, मैंने किताबी cabins का वो एपिसोड देखा था जहाँ पे वो नई लड़की बात कर रही थी, उसने मुझे बोला कि हाँ चैट में से दो तीन वर्ड्स उठाओ और सेंटेंसेस उठाओ और स्टोरी में डालो." Yes, do it right now. With that, I really want to come to a little bit of a point where I say good night and adios to all my friends. But before that, I want the last talking point of this stream to just be about what we would want to do next, right? क्योंकि मैं चाहूंगी कि this keeps continuing and this channel keeps growing, and I would love that people keep turning up. I'm so even if there is somebody in Sydney right now who's come or joined me, or any other time zone actually for that matter, and you are actually up at 2:30 watching this, I'm so happy. And I would want this to sort of keep going. Raghav may at the same time, I'm going to, sorry, quickly take one quick detour and just talk about the quote that he has put up. He's written that it is a world not of angels, but of angels, where men speak of moral principles but act on power principles, a world where we are moral and our enemies are always immoral. Wow, Raghav, that's interesting. Have you actually? I don't know. Is this a quote from a book? If you can just put up um, a message in the chat box whenever you've got the time, just come back right wherever you've gotten this quote from, because this is super interesting, man. I genuinely like this. Right. Okay, a few more quotes coming in. You could never convince a monkey banana by promising him limitless bananas after death in monkey heaven. Cool. I love it. I love the randomness of this quote. I love this. This is what I was expecting and hoping. Random quotes is how this stream is going to actually come to its close. I'm so glad. Keep sending me random messages in the chat box. Like, make no sense at this point. Write anything. Pretty much what I did in most of the stream tonight, because I wanted to keep this as chill as possible. Frankly speaking, because I'm new to this, I think audience is new to this. Everybody's warming up. मुझे लगता है this could be a testing ground. Let's not keep this as the very benchmark. I'm definitely sure that a lot of people here who've turned up have actually shared some great suggestions and great suggestions to look forward to. But moving forward, I think we can set a tone. For me, like I said, feminist literature, for me, classics speak to me, and I feel like this is something that we can make our niche moving forward, right? And if you like something like this, if you like the authors that we've discussed in the past, I mean, go through the stream, play it on 5x because मैं बहुत चप चप कर रही हूँ. But अगर कुछ भी ऐसा हो that there are some certain video stamps or time stamps that you actually like and you think that we can discuss this, what you can do is essentially, please do drop me a message on Instagram. So you can add me at Tanya Tan double Y double A dot Mittal. That's my full name. You will find me and drop me suggestions as to what we can discuss further. If there are things from this video where you felt that okay, this was a good structure, इसमें ये 6-7 चीजें इसने बोली और moving forward हम इसके बारे में बात कर सकते हैं. Let's actually make a segment out of it. मतलब एक किसी अपील फैक्टर के बारे में पूरी स्ट्रीम कर सकते हैं. हमने कुछ 6-7 अच्छे मोटे अपील फैक्टर्स की बात की, which I think personally hooked me on to any book. Classics हो, कुछ भी हो. So moving forward, we can do something like this. Is there a last quote for the कुछ भी random जो किसी को भेजना है? Feel free, and we'll read it out and then we'll call it a night. ठीक है? And I'm so glad that you all have turned up. Like, I am very, very happy that there have been responses to things that I've said, especially the fact about discussing random things. And I look forward to some notes and some interesting, quirky things coming in my inbox, coming to Chalchitra. Please send random. And it's a request at this point. Vaibhav, Vaani, Hindol, don't be, Saurabh, don't get flabbergasted. क्योंकि अगर आपको ऐसे random messages आने लगे by the end of the night, we will know that we have had a good audience for Kitaabi cabins. That is the proof of it. So there's just one last quote that I'm going to read out. Dumbness is overrated. Just कहाँ गया? Well, just made this quote and I like it. Well, I love it. Personally, favorite. True. Right. Amazing. Good night, Tata, bye bye. This is the end of Tanya Talkies. Tanya can keep talking for endless hours, but I think moving forward, like we said, we will have so much more to talk about. I'm glad that this has been a good start and a good start apparently to the new year. I hope you guys are staying safe, being with your loved ones, spreading all the joy that you can ever possible. And milte hain soon. I will see you super soon. All right. Good night.